Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Hawkeye Nation, to a Thursday morning episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, your daily podcast covering your Iowa Hawkeyes on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I am your host, Andrew Wade, excited to be back for another show today, and it is the start of the Big Ten tournament for the men's side. Really excited to cover that game. So we're going to be breaking down Iowa versus Northwestern after a pretty big comeback against Nebraska. We are taking on at Northwestern today. I'll be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about the awards and how Keegan Murray probably got robbed. We'll be talking about that. And then finally wrapping up with some NFL talk. Noah Fant, former Iowa tight end, leaving the Denver Broncos in a trade that shocked the world. We're going to be talking about why Denver shipped him off and what he could do this next stage in his career. That's all coming up in a few short moments. But first, I want to thank you all for making the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast your first listen every single day. You can find the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast for free wherever you get podcasts at, and also on YouTube by searching Locked On Hawkeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline.net, it's where the game starts. So let's get into it. The Big Ten tournament has begun. Iowa getting the playing game of the winner of that between Nebraska and Northwestern. And I'll be honest, I did not want to play Nebraska. Beating a team 3 times this season is not easy. Beating a team that has presumably started to reach its highest ceiling is not a team you ever want to face. And Nebraska was peaking at the right time, winning their last couple of games on the road against tough teams, getting quality quad one wins. That is not a team you want to face in the Big Ten tournament. You do not want to face a team that is hot. But Northwestern comes back down 15, manages to get the W against Nebraska. Nebraska doing Nebraska things and imploding towards the end. So now we get Northwestern, and I think that is honestly a better matchup for the Hawkeyes. Now I'm going to talk to you about why here in a second. Here is what Mccaffrey, though, had to say when asked about Northwestern before even knowing whether it was going to be Nebraska or Northwestern. He said, when you look at Northwestern, they were not themselves the last time they faced them. I mean, I don't want to sell our own team short. It was a great senior night, but Bowie was out. Pete Nance was not himself. He wasn't the only one. Of course, they played substantially better the next game when the guys weren't sick. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. When you look at the minutes, they did not play all that much. Bowie, I think, only played 6 minutes. Robbie Beran only played a couple of minutes. So Northwestern really down pretty early without some of their main guys. Pete Nance, as he mentioned, struggled a little bit as well in that game. Overall, though, I think Iowa matches up very well against this Northwestern team. To quickly recap how they played against Nebraska, Pete Nance did a pretty good job, 14 points. Boo Buie had 16 points, but he also had 6 turnovers on 4 of 11 shooting, 3 of 10 from 3. Nebraska did a good job of picking the pockets of Northwestern. Northwestern hasn't been a team that has traditionally allowed a lot of steals or turnovers this season, but Nebraska doing a good job there. Shea Sadij did a great job defensively, but struggled offensively, 2 of 11. Really handled Nebraska's first-round pick, Bryce McGowan, pretty darn well. So when you look at what to expect in this game, first and foremost, how are they going to stop Keegan Murray? Our first-team All-American Keegan Murray. It's probably going to be with Chase Adij. Chase has been kind of the defensive stopper for Northwestern, so expect him to be on Keegan Murray early on. It'll also be interesting to see how does Northwestern switch up their defenses. When Iowa earlier on in the season was playing a team like Minnesota who went from a man to a zone, Iowa struggled a little bit, but they also did not have Connor McCaffrey in that game. So Northwestern against Nebraska was doing a great job of switching from man to zone and back to man. I think in man situations, Iowa has better athletes than Northwestern. I think Iowa's post players are better athletes. Philip Bracha probably on the same tier as a Pete Nance, but if you get a small lineup in there, you get a Keegan and a Chris, the 4 and the 5, I think Iowa's post players can eat up against Northwestern. I think especially in pick and roll situations, you're going to really burn Northwestern. Now in zone, that'll be really interesting to see how Iowa attacks that. More than likely, you're going to see Connor McCaffrey come in a bit more and kind of be the facilitator for that. Those are kind of the things I'm definitely looking for in this game. The last time Iowa played as well, offensively, Ty Berry had a fantastic game going 5 of 10 from 3. And in all actuality, Iowa did not shoot that much better than Northwestern despite dominating them from start to finish in that past game. Iowa shot roughly the same as Northwestern, but they dominated the glass. And that is a trend that we are seeing Iowa continue to play out even against teams like Illinois, where the previous game, Kofi Coburn had almost as many rebounds as Iowa. This game, Iowa getting pretty close in the rebounding margin. The last time these two teams played, it was something like plus 15 on the glass for the Hawks. I expect it to be similar. Iowa's wings are continuing to crash down. Iowa has more athletic post players who are going to be able to go up and grab those rebounds, and it should not be a problem. A couple other question marks I'm looking at right here. Patrick McCaffrey, is he going to be healthy for this game? He sat out the last game due to some hip and illness type of stuff against Illinois. Is he healthy enough to play? The biggest thing is we need to be able to make a run in the NCAA tournament. So you want to make sure he's healthy then. We'll see. If he's playing, he's definitely ready to go. It's not one of those things where Fran McCaffrey is going to play him at 75%. He typically is not going to do that with his players, especially with what's on the line. I would also like to see Chris and Keegan together more. Now, a lot of people have been in my mentions about Philip Bracha isn't good. Philip Bracha is a good player. He's just not good in situations like playing a Kofi Coburn where Kofi is bigger and more athletic than him. However, Philip Bracha is a very solid post player against most teams in the Big Ten. Now, with that being said, though, I don't know why my nose really itches, but with that being said, though, I would like to see Chris and Keegan more in this game together. I think they can really attack and exploit a lot of what you're going to see on the Northwestern side, especially if Northwestern goes to a Pete Nance and a Ryan Young playing those two bigs, solid bigs, but not going to be able to handle the duo of Keegan and Chris Murray. I also would love to see Iowa get out to a lead early again in this game as well. Be able to take their foot off the pedal and get some of the younger guys in because they have a quick turnaround. They play Rutgers tomorrow on 22 hours rest. And that's one thing to know about Northwestern. They only have 19 hours of rest before playing the Hawks today. So, again, it should be a win for Iowa. Right now, favored by 8. I'm not probably going to hop on that plus 8. I'm probably going to hop on the Iowa team total over at this point. But should be a win for the Hawks. They desperately need this to keep them in consideration for that 6th seed. I think if you win 2 games here, you beat Northwestern, you beat Rutgers, you're definitely a 6th seed. If you beat Northwestern, you lose to Rutgers, possibly a 6th seed, potentially a 7. And as we've talked about on previous shows, it is crucial that Iowa gets a 6th seed or higher. That is the best opportunity for them to go far in this tournament. So can Iowa keep up their winning ways? Can they bounce back after a disappointing loss against Illinois? We will see here in a few short hours. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about the awards and how I'm not very happy about it. Johnny Davis running away with some of the awards. A strong, fantastic player in his own right, but he's not Keegan Murray's level. We're going to be talking about that here in a few short moments and why I think Keegan should have won. But first, I love and I hate those buzzer beaters. The drama. But oh, the pain when you are on the other side of it. That's what happened in a lot of these games in the past couple of years. I'm watching the NCAA tournament. I have my March Madness bracket up, and all of a sudden I lose just this close. I actually remember the Duke and UCF game 3-4 years ago with tackle fall. I wanted UCF to win. I had UCF to win. They almost did win, but they ultimately lost to Duke. Those things stink. But you don't have to worry about that anymore because Stat Hero's NCAA single game pick'em pits the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take control back from those handicappers that always seem to have the advantage and start focusing on the players you know the best with a gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, long odds, or funky props, or allows you to basically burn your bracket into the ground. It's one game at a time. Stat Hero is the easiest and the fastest way to get your sports action fix. Here's how it works. They give you a dozen lineups. You can comb through those, and then you take them on head-to-head. They simply post sets of players for you to take on with the set of players you choose. So sign up free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use the promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. stathero.com/lockedon. Promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. And again, thank you all for making the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure to check out the Locked On Bracket Breakdown March 14th right here on the Locked On and Hawkeyes podcast feed and YouTube channel. College basketball experts Chris Gordy, Andy Patton, and betting expert Lee Sterling give you in-depth breakdowns on every matchup. So we talked about Iowa versus Northwestern. Now it's time to talk about the awards, because this was kind of controversial. When we talked about the awards a couple of days ago, I had mentioned that I felt like Fran McCaffrey did enough, warranted being the coach of the year in the Big Ten. I also felt like Keegan Murray warranted being the Big Ten player of the year. However, it ultimately went to Greg Gard of Wisconsin, who was the coach that I thought had the best chance to supplant Fran and obviously had the best chance to win. And then also Johnny Davis as the player of the year. I'm okay with Greg Gard getting coach of the year. I think what he has done this year has been impressive as well. Wisconsin being picked to finish 8th or 9th in the Big Ten and winning the conference is comparable to Fran McCaffrey and Iowa being picked to win or being picked to be 9th or 10th in the conference and getting 4th or 5th, right? So it's comparable in that regard. I think what Fran has done late in the season to improve the issues that kind of hurt and hindered Iowa early on in the season, to me, shows a better coaching effort from Fran. But I'm not going to, die on that hill, even though, Brad Underwood at Illinois, Tom Izzo, both have spoken glowingly about the coaching job that Fran McCaffrey has done this year. Some year he'll get it, right? Some year he will win that. But the bigger thing to me was Keegan Murray not getting Big Ten Player of the Year. I'm going to run through a few stats and then kind of explain why I think Keegan should have been the player of the year. In minutes played, Keegan is playing 3 minutes less than Johnny. He's shooting 10% better from the field, 5% better from three. He has over almost 4 rebounds more per game, 1 assist less per game, a little over 0.2 steals more per game, 1.5 blocks per game more, 1 less turnover per game, and he's averaging 3.3 more points per game. To expand it even further, in conference play, Keegan Murray's three-point shooting percentage is 42% compared to Johnny Davis's 32%. 2-point percentage, 57% compared to Johnny's 49%. His offensive rating is 124.7. Right now, KenPom has Keegan as the second best player in the nation. Johnny is the 10th best player in the nation. Now let's look at the head-to-head. In the head-to-head, Johnny had 26 points on 7 of 11 shooting, 3 of 7 from 3, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 turnovers. Keegan had 27 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3, 5 rebounds, 3 turnovers, 3 blocks, and 1 steal. Statistically speaking, Keegan beats Johnny in every major category. The only one he doesn't beat him in is assists. But you look at the turnovers, and he beats him in assist to turnover ratio. You look at play in the conference, Keegan has elevated his game, whereas Johnny maybe hasn't as much, and yet Keegan still beating Johnny in all those major metrics as well. What Keegan has done for the Iowa Hawkeyes is nothing short of impressive. Keegan is going to be a top 10 draft pick, just like Johnny. Johnny should be a top 10, top 15 draft pick, but Keegan has taken over games. Keegan is a matchup nightmare. Keegan is the reason why this Iowa team could go far in the NCAA tournament. I don't think Johnny is the kind of guy to take Wisconsin deep into the NCAA tournament. When you look at what Keegan has done against superior competition, he elevates his game, and he has become one of the most efficient wings in the entire nation. This is not a comparison of a Luka Garza who has most of his shots 3 feet from the rim to a wing or a guard. This is a wing who takes a lot of shots, very difficult shots, compared to another wing. And by every metric, Keegan has outperformed Johnny. And you put the tape on, what Keegan does is elevates his Iowa basketball team. He is the reason why Iowa is a 5th seed in the Big Ten tournament. He is the reason why Iowa had a chance to be a 4 or 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament. He's the reason why Iowa is a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. When you look at these all Big Ten teams, it was Keegan unanimously on the first team and Jordan Bohannon as honorable mention. That's not a diss on the other guys, right? Chris has played really well. Patrick has had his spurts. Tony Perkins has come along. But it goes to show you that Keegan has really been the guy. Last year, Luka Garza had Joe Wieskamp. Jordan Bohannon, honestly, was terrible until February. It has been the Keegan Murray show here for the entire season. And I think it's even more telling that Keegan Murray was unanimous first team All Big Ten and Johnny Davis wasn't. Now, I would disagree that I think Johnny Davis should have been first team All Big Ten unanimous, but the fact that a coach did not think that tells you a lot. And I don't know how the heck Johnny Davis got first team All Big Ten and Big Ten Player of the Year. It just doesn't make sense to me. And what pisses me off more is that when asked who he thought could have got it after him, he said Kofi Cockburn. Maybe it's just me being biased, but I think Johnny Davis kind of sucks. Not a fan of him, especially I do not know how you look at Kofi Cockburn and say you are the second best player in this conference. You are just a really big athletic dude. You are not overly talented. You are just a very, very big athletic dude. You are not skilled like Luka Garza. You just overpower everyone and get 0 fouls called. I don't know how that is equatable to being the second best player in the conference ahead of Keegan Murray. I don't know. I think I'm just overall frustrated by the Johnny Davis comment of that Kofi Cockburn was the second best player. But nevertheless, Keegan Murray getting first team All Big Ten, Jordan Bohannon getting honorable mention All Big Ten, neither Fran McCaffrey or Keegan Murray winning coach or player of the year in their respective categories. Unfortunately, losing out to Wisconsin, who I think definitely got an edge for winning the conference, which I don't think should be the end-all be-all of those determining factors. Nevertheless, we're going to see how it all plays out in the Big Ten tournament and also in the NCAA tournament as well. Keegan Murray starting to rake in those All-American honors. He very well could be a unanimous All-American. It wouldn't surprise me with the performances he's had throughout this season and arguably going into the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. Coming up, we're going to talk about the trade that shocked the world. Noah Fant going to Seattle. What does this mean for the former Iowa tight end? What does it mean for Seattle? And what does it mean for the Broncos? It is that big of news. We've got to cover it here on the show today. I do want to remind you, though, that on tomorrow's show, we're going to actually be breaking down the Iowa versus Northwestern game and giving a quick preview of Iowa versus Rutgers. And we'll be dropping that episode probably today, actually, because we want to give you plenty of time to listen to that. And we do have a special guest joining for the show as of right now. So be on the lookout for that. March Madness, though, is only a few weeks away. That means you need to start thinking now. In fact, it's only 8 days away, 10 days away. That means you need to start thinking now about where you're going to be running your brackets this year. Are you going for the usual or are you looking for the best? We've done our homework here and we're running our brackets with runyourpool.com. Along with standard brackets, Run Your Pool offers game types like Survivor or Pick X. They have options to edit scoring and they offer more intel to make your picks, all stuff you won't find at ESPN or CBS. If you've got a business, Run Your Pool can help you take some of that madness magic and play alongside your employees or even gain customers. Plus, they offer full white glove customer support, custom branding, and one of the easiest 3-minute setups you'll ever find. Clearly, we believe in Run Your Pool because, like I said, we're running our brackets there ourselves. There's no truer test than that. If you want to play against us for a shot at a cash prize, join us at runyourpool.com/lockedon. And while you're there, create your own pool for your friends and family. Enter Pure Madness at checkout for $10 off your custom pool. All the rules and details will be available there. That's runyourpool.com/lockedon for your chance to win a cash prize. We look forward to seeing and beating you right there. And it is that time of the year, again, as college basketball's tournament season is finally upon us. We had some of the smaller tournaments this past weekend. We had the bigger tournaments already kicking off, and we have March Madness kicking off here in a week. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season, and it is the spot that I personally trust for everything I want to do, including placing my bets there at BetOnline. That is where I'm betting on Iowa to hit the team total over. That's where I'll be betting on Iowa throughout the season. That's actually where I bet money on the women's team to win the NCAA tournament. That's how excited I am for March Madness. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device and learn more about the trends in action. That's betonline.net. It's where the game starts. All right, y'all, let's talk about the trade that shocked the world. It was a huge trade, and it was a little bit unknown of who was included. So what happened? I was sitting here, I think it was Tuesday, actually. I'm going to remember that situation. My buddy texts me, and he says, look at what just happened. And I see a text that says, Russell Wilson traded to the Denver Broncos for picks and players. Now, the big news, if you're a Denver Broncos fan, and I know not all of you are, but I think it's important from an Iowa Hawkeyes perspective to cover this. The big thing was who's going in that trade. The first two names we heard were Shelby Harris and Drew Lock. And it was assumed that former first-round pick Jerry Jeudy or former first-round pick Pat Surtain would also be included in that. Then the news came out that it was actually former first-round pick Noah Fant, Iowa tight end. Now, that is a huge bummer for Noah Fant. It's a huge bummer for Iowa fans watching the Denver Broncos that Noah Fant is no longer going to be there. He has had a very quiet but somewhat successful 3-year start to his tenure in Iowa or to Denver. He hasn't had the monster numbers and he hasn't had a consistent performance by any means, but he's been solid. In 3 years, 170 receptions, 1,905 yards, 11.2 yards per reception, and 10 touchdowns. Last year, 68 catches on 90 targets for 670 yards. But the interesting thing about Noah Fant in this offense is that he has not been the focal point. He has not even been the third or fourth option at times. He has basically put together, he'll have 1 or 2 games where he has 100 yards, 8 catches, puts together a phenomenal performance, and then he's quiet for the rest of the season. And a lot of that has to do with Pat Shurmur, Denver's former offensive coordinator, who was absolutely atrocious. Bad quarterback play, inconsistent quarterback play. So for Noah Fant, it sucks, right? We got a new offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, a guy who has really elevated Robert Tanyan's game over in Green Bay. We have Russell Wilson, a guy who is a dynamic quarterback and who's going to be able to get to the ball to all of his playmakers. And yet Noah Fant is heading the opposite way. Noah Fant is going to tight end wasteland, a place where tight ends are not the focal point of the offense. Will Disley is not the focal point of Seattle's offense. Now, we did see Jimmy Graham earlier on in his career have a lot of good success in the red zone. Maybe that's what we see from Noah Fant. But going there with a bad quarterback situation, with a head coach who probably is not going to be around that much longer, it kind of stinks for Noah Fant out there right now. And unfortunately, he's had a lot of question marks. Denver Broncos fans have not been super easy on him. They wanted more from their first-round tight end. I would say we probably maxed out production for our first-round tight end, given the circumstances that we put him into. And this is a really pivotal year for him because he was going to have to potentially, the Denver Broncos were going to have to look at restructuring his deal. Right, not restructuring, but signing him for his 5th-year option or not, and then putting him as a free agent after next season. Now he goes to Seattle. I would be shocked if they didn't add in or pick up his 5th-year option, so he stays in Seattle for 2 years at least. And it wasn't an expensive price tag. I think it was like $6.8 million. From a Denver Broncos side, it's a very strong free agent class at tight end. Plus, they have Albert O out of Missouri, a guy who kind of embodies a lot of what Noah Fant does from an athletic perspective, but maybe not as polished or ready to go. Albert O is now stepping into that starting role for the Denver Broncos. We'll see how Denver can handle that. But Iowa tight end Noah Fant included in the trade that shocked the world. Russell Wilson going to the Denver Broncos for 2 first, 2 second, Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Fant. Want to make sure we cover that all right here on the show today. I want to thank you all for making the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast your first listen every single day. Now it's time to make the Locked On NFL Draft podcast your second listen every single day. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every single day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and it's available wherever you get your podcast at, so make sure to check that out. Again, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Have a fantastic Thursday, and as always, Hawkeye Nation, let's go Hawkeyes.